we design for the human, then we assume the rest of the world is there for the human. Life-centered design is we are designing for the whole ecosystem, and the humans are a part of, but like you said, the humans can go away and the ecosystem continues. The ecosystem goes away, the human does not continue.
Welcome to Back to the Future podcast. My name is Victor Sadia, and I talk with brilliant minds and hearts of people who want to uproot and transform the current health and wellness paradigm. Dr. Amy Mechley has board certifications in lifestyle and family medicine. She founded IFC Direct Primary Care in Cincinnati to provide care, emphasizing prevention and the potential reversal of common diseases. She is the current president of the International Board of Lifestyle Medicine. In this episode, we delve into Amy's philosophy on primary care, emphasizing the importance of genuine human connection and trust in the doctor-patient relationship. Dr. Mechley shares her insights on the often asked but rarely answered question, "How are you?" and its deeper significance in acknowledging and connecting with others. We discuss the power of a simple smile in bridging communication gaps across different cultures and the critical role of visual connection in telehealth. Dr. Mechley also reflects on the integration of intuition in her medical practice, advocating for a holistic approach that honors the interconnectedness of all aspects of patient care. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Today we have Dr. Amy Mechley. Amy, thank you so much for being here.
Victor, as you know, it's a pleasure. I've been wanting to reconnect.
So I feel we are connected in a sense, but once we're in the same space, it changes a bit, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I asked you before we started recording, "How are you?" And then you asked me, "How are you?" What's behind that question? And that's one of the most frequent questions we ask, and probably the most frequent question we don't answer. What's behind that question?
I love your intuition, and more than your intuition, your innate ability to look beyond the obvious, because that statement is so correct. And I've thought about this, and I'll tell you a game that I play that I think is kind of fun. It's just for my own personal joy. But before I tell you that, I'll answer the question. So I believe it comes from an innate human-centered need to connect, because it acknowledges someone else. And I've looked at different cultures. I've watched different cultures of how they acknowledge each other. And there's some uniqueness to that. But I think with language, we say, "How are you?" Hello. Well, hello is a greeting, but then "How are you?" It's more of an acknowledgement, but you're right. It doesn't answer. We don't answer the question. That I don't have an answer to. I'm not sure why we don't answer the question, but I believe the reason we ask the question is because we want that connection. We want that a little bit deeper of an acknowledgement, because I believe we're intrinsically connected in multiple levels. I mean, we're connected with nature, and we feel that, and we know that from science. We know that just if you really allow yourself to sit and be still, you can feel those changes just by simply, I'm in my home office now. If I simply went out this window and sat outside and we talked outside, if you're paying attention, you'll feel that shift. So I think there's that connection. Why we don't answer it honestly, I think that's an evolutionary thing. And that's one of the issues, is that we pretend that we're not connected, or we pretend that we are not enough or not important enough to answer the question. Like somebody's not actually interested. And maybe we were shown that through life or through others, but again, very complex. We could spend the hour talking probably about that, but I'll tell you the game I like to play for that. And you know me, because we spent time together walking and talking, and we laughed because after a short period of time, we felt like we knew each other better than maybe people we spent years with. But if I'm in a crowded city, and I started this years and years ago, and I think it's from my stronger desire to be connected, or either an awareness, or it's just stronger in me. So to take New York City or Chicago, where people are walking by each other constantly, I would count the number of people, and I would make like a little yes if I could get somebody to smile back at me. And so I would do eye to eye, and I'd go, "Hello, hi, how are you? Good morning, good afternoon." And of course, it's unusual because in that setting, people aren't speaking to each other. So I would just play a little game, and then when I got somebody to smile or laugh or say hi, I just took it as a win because I connected with somebody in that busy sense.
Yeah, yeah. And you know, most of the time when we smile, like the smile from the other is much more instinctual, you know?
Mhm.
It doesn't matter if you say many things, but if you smile, then the smile gets back to us. Um, Sometimes people, you know, are very afraid and will say, no, this person might be a psycho. Why is she smiling at me?
Right.
But most of the time, the instinctual part, I think, kicks in and say, okay, I feel safe with a person smiling.
In a safe environment. The other place that I've seen this recently, and I've had the great pleasure of being in places that I don't share the language. So that's was very different for me. So that's and it happened a few times. Um, and a smile is the game changer. If you are trying to communicate, so I was in a small grocery store and I was trying to figure out how to get something, and I'd walk in, I'd say one or two of the words of the language, and you could tell we just weren't on the same page. And I'm like, do you speak English? And nothing. And there was like a very small staring, and then I smile, or he smiled, I can't remember. And then we both smiled, and then we both realized we're like, well, this is just going to be fun. We're just going to have fun with it. Or I remember another place where it was not as in a comfortable position. It was somewhere that I wasn't feeling very comfortable. And you just automatically feel like there's more of a threat. And then as soon as there's an acknowledgement of that smile and the other smile, the shift is so significant. So yeah. So I think that connection, even when you don't have the same language, is pretty profound when you watch it and you watch it happen.
Yeah. Yeah,
Because
and
we're
I do
all
believe that there's there's some sort of fake smile and some sort of real smile that it gets also perceived by the other person when you are
correct.
forcing a smile rather than with just really just as an expression of what you're feeling.
Well, it's a science of those mirror neurons. I mean, the mirroring neurons, it's really interesting. And again, I love that we don't really have yet an agenda for this conversation, which is lovely. But I was just reading about the mirror neurons, and it dawned on me. So mirror neurons is that my body, it's a survival technique. Yeah, will innately mirror what I see in you, and I think there's lots of reasons for that. But think about COVID. Think about what we went through with COVID, and if you're covering up those, I thought that was an interesting thought, along with all the other stressors that were going on, and the separation that was going on. Even when we saw people, we couldn't see the large part of their face. So I bet our mirror neurons were just going nuts, like, hey, wait, I'm not getting this feedback. I'm not getting this. And I know I was like super expressive with my eyes, when you're wearing masks all the time, I'm just trying to acknowledge people. But um, I just, again, I think that is kind of interesting. Or if other cultures, when they wear garments, over some of their face, and I can't mirror them, I can't perceive them. Do I look at that person differently because I can't fully see their face? People wear hoodies maybe sometimes where some of it's even blocked. It just started me to think about that, as
Yeah.
far as connectedness and what we crave, and then
Yeah. And
seeing beyond.
you
Yeah.
know, thieves mask themselves, obviously so that they don't get recognized, but also it's very scary to see a person who is not a person, because you don't have any
You can't read
resonance.
them.
Yeah.
You can't read them. Yeah, you can't get that assurance. So yeah. So again, and that, how are you? And that's why we love being in Zoom, because we could be talking on the phone. And I do this with all my patients. When I do telehealth with my patients, very rarely, and I'll have some people who are older who just are, it's not they're not comfortable, they haven't done it yet. And I've been doing telehealth for probably about 6 or 7 years. So we started it well before the pandemic, because we had the technology, and we didn't have to worry about billing and all the other stuff that was getting in the way in the US. So it was very, very important to me to teach everyone how to get on the camera. And they're like, oh, I'm sitting in my car. I'm like, as long as you're parked, I do a much better job as your doctor. And you know why. I mean, we all know why. So by seeing you, and so getting that connection is just, I mean, for what we do in lifestyle medicine, for what we do, what's the really essence of relationship-based care, It's not in some algorithm in some scientific book. I mean, it's good to know that up here, but what we do and the magic, and I say magic, the art, the beauty of caring for another person, that connection is important. So the visualization, yeah.
Yeah,
Very cool.
that's one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about. You know, what is primary care? What is family care? And what is so different to other perceptions of what a medical doctor can do for you, you know? And I think, at least in Mexico, this word doesn't mean much. And once you explain it, oh yeah, you know, yeah, we need more of those practitioners. Can you explain how do you perceive family care and family medicine?
Absolutely. Yeah. I talk again, it's been part of my career, well, the whole thing. So in general, primary care to me is primary. Everyone should have one. It's an advocate. It's your personal healthcare advocate. So they are interested holistically in you, period. And that is the first and foremost. So not only, so if I am a primary care doctor, I need to know my patient, and that takes time. That takes a relationship, that takes trust. That just isn't and I'll be a little negative here. What we're seeing is the shift to a streamlined, faster, let me just get an app and I'll connect with a healthcare provider, and it's someone I don't know. And provider means that can mean a lot. I mean, we talk about physicians, and I think, and I will defend the physician's position because I think it's critical to the health and well-being of the globe. We have lots of providers, and I think all providers, and I've worked with the gamut of team-based care in many different settings, and we can talk about that if you'd like to, but a great deal of settings. And so I've had the really the opportunity, the blessed opportunity to work in a lot of settings. So I see the advantage of a lot, and I see the absolute advantage of a team. Physicians are part of a team. But what I defend to be so critically important for the health of a human being is to have that advocate in an organized healthcare system that knows you and that they know me, so they trust me. I say that probably 2 to 3 times a week. If something's happening with a patient, I say, do you trust me? And I just want to put it out there. And they look at me and they're like, and it's so beautiful because we enculturate it in the practice. And they say, Dr. Mechley, you know, I trust you completely. I said, okay, because of that, here's why I want to talk to you about this. And so I just kind of recreate that foundation so that we can take away a lot of sometimes it's a lot of the junk that's coming in from the culture from the outside. Well, what about this? What about this? What about this? And I can tell them, you know, here's my degrees. Here's why I spend all this extra time and nights and weekends looking at all this stuff. I'm a constant student, blah, 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 blah. I've got, you know, but it's really, do you trust me? And that I hold sacred. And then I am your advocate. So I can help you not only for your own health and well-being, because my patients do know when I tell them something, it's because I know it's in their best interest. It's not because of another variable, like, I don't know, this is all I know, you know, because I really try to get a very broad, constant education. But I mean, we're all limited. Trust me, we're all limited. Yeah. But I do. So I think primary care is that it's caring for that patient in a trusted relationship, and then being their advocate, which is, I think, in the United States, and I'll speak specifically for this, because this is one of the things I've really challenged the design, or I just even the design, because it wasn't really designed, it just happened over time. If it was designed, it wouldn't be this way. And that I really believe primary care should be outside of the insurance industry for multiple reasons. One, primary care is a known cost. It's budgetable. It's not an expensive form of care whatsoever. And so that's why what the form of primary care that I do, it's flat fee. Everybody knows exactly what it should be. So no surprises. You plan for it, and it's for everyday care. So you wouldn't be using your home insurance to go get light bulbs. You wouldn't be using your home insurance to replace the carpet or the air conditioner or a broken glass in the you know, blah, 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 simple things. But you'd use it in case there was a disaster. Same with car insurance. Insurance is a modality. Insurance is a tool for use for unexpected, catastrophic issues. And primary care is expected, and it's not catastrophic. the reason then, so that's the financial part, that's the economics part. But the reason I think from a delivery system is that I'm not now tied to this other place that I have to answer to. My main goal is caring for you. So if I think you should see a cardiologist that happens to be in this system or in this town or what have you, there's the reason. If you need to go to get testing here and it's going to cost you 20% less, but it's the same quality of testing, that's what we're going to do. So
Yeah.
I can advocate because I am working for you as opposed to working for all the other entities out there
Yeah.
that, I don't think are extremely valuable in primary care. Now we need insurance. We need that extra. So anyway, that's kind of, I started to wrap that into the definition of that's why I think, everybody deserves a primary care doctor who knows them, who's accessible, and you can spend time with. And it
Yeah.
right sizes the care to, I spend more time with my primary care doctor than I do in this catastrophic world, which I should only be touching occasionally.
Yeah. And,
Yeah.
and one of the best approaches is that the primary care physician is not really focused on a particular organ or a particular disease. And that's also another, paradigm approach that it's interesting in a sense that, or for example, let's talk about like functional medicine, because in a sense, I know that in your practice, you don't really do advanced testing. You don't do excessive supplements. You're really thinking about a lifestyle foundation, which doesn't need all these apparatuses of technology and things. And I do believe sometimes functional medicine, although it's much more holistic than allopathic medicine, it's still embedded in this insurance, very intricate tests, very specialized supplements. And in a sense, it's still, yeah, I wouldn't say sequestering, but really like putting the burden on the physician who's telling you what to do instead of the patient. And I'm being a bit extremist just to compare functional to lifestyle medicine, although they are in a sense very similar, and the basis of functional is lifestyle. But still, I think it's embedded in the more conventional paradigm. Do you share that view or a nuance of that?
I love how you said that, Victor. I absolutely, I share the view, and I'll expand upon it a little bit. So in my mind, the way that I have thought about this is integrative, functional, and lifestyle, in my perspective, share about 80%. So the majority of that whole person view, that let's get back to homeostasis, let's allow your body to heal, let's take out the things that are the barriers and allow good nutrition, good sleep, restorative sleep, movement, things that maybe we don't understand to be as important and critical, and they are. Like I had a patient said, I don't like water. And I was like, okay, we're just gonna have to get over that. It's like saying to me, you don't like air. There's certain things that's like, if they don't like exercise, we roll with resistance and we talk to them about it, So there's just these foundational pieces of health. And I think all of those three paradigms share that. Now, about 20%, I think, a functional and 20% integrative, and this is just favorite, are a little bit more fragmented, would be a way that you said that. They're sequestered. They're more of, hey, you have to come to me to get this special stuff. And there's things that can make you healthy that maybe are not part of that foundational element. I think there is room and space for both functional and integrative. And I think I've known people and patients who have really had additional healing from those modalities. So, and I'm always having eyes wide open, because science, that's where science comes from. At first it's like, what? Oh, interesting. Let's prove it. Let's really look at it. Is it evidence-based? So lifestyle medicine tries to sit itself in the evidence-based realm, which I think is critical for a professional like myself, for somebody who, like what I talked about, do you trust me? I then really need to trust the information that I am incorporating, and the knowledge that I'm incorporating into my practice. So I feel that it's important for me in my position as a lifestyle medicine physician and intensivist to say, I can tell you all about this, or as much as I know about this, and here's why I believe it to be true, and here's how it was tested, and here's where I see it, and here's how it's replicable in a human being. And we all know every human being is unique, so there's variation, and we have to be really thoughtful of that. There's no one right answer. so I like, and honestly, what I feel in the movement is we're coming together, because I think we need to come together, because the public has got so much confusion. This signal to noise ratio, there's so much noise out here, and here's the truth in here, or the truth as we can know when we believe it really helps people. And there's just all this other noise for lots of different reasons. People are making money off of silly things, and they make it sound fantastic. And so again, I think we need to pay attention, but we need to be thoughtful about, this is what we know and here's how we practice. So if integrative, functional, and lifestyle really, and I see them coming together, I see them from a academic perspective. We're talking more and more to the, especially the integrative world. And then the functional medicine books that I see are coming out are really focusing on a whole foods, plant strong nutrition. They're really, so all the supplements and all the testing, I think that's still going to happen a little bit. And the way that I help myself stay in a kind of a, not a neutral position, but an open position, is I remember where it came from. So if you're in a position where Western medicine or allopathic medicine was very reductionistic, and it continued to get reduction. It was talking about, you know, the huge influence of big companies, the huge influence of the pharmaceutical companies, the huge influence from the insurance companies. There's something about it that didn't feel right. So when you try to do something better or change, sometimes you really have to separate yourself to kind of put a stake in the ground, get a name for yourself. So I think in some ways, the early beginnings of functional, integrative, et cetera, they were trying, and I don't want to speak for them, because again, I want to be really thoughtful about that. But my reflection, they were trying to be the antithesis of. So they're like, you know, Western medicine, allopathic medicine, they don't have an answer for this. They're giving you the runaround. We can make a difference here. And so I have an understanding of that. And now, like I talked about with lifestyle medicine, when lifestyle medicine was in infancy stage, toddler stage, and I think, you know, we're well into our adolescence. And so we're shaping that and understanding. So now we know all this, and now we know this to be true. How can we take this and bring it to a clinically strong practice? And again, how can we bring functional, integrative, and lifestyle together so non-communicable disease is impacted so much together, as opposed to everyone just being confused and trying, you know, am I this, am I that, am I going to follow this, do I have to talk to this doctor, do I have to talk to this practitioner, do I have to talk to this? Not that we can be all of one, but I think we can do a better job, and we are doing a better job, I think, of helping all of us understand where the truth lies. You know, and the foundation. And that's what one of the things that, and I apologize, because I know I want to talk.
No. Go ahead.
I'll have my patients, somebody could sometimes come in and they're asking me about, and we can talk about supplements and we can talk about extra testing, things like, but they're asking me about some supplement. And let's say it's a very unproven supplement, but it's gotten a lot of, it's trendy. It's just got a lot of attention in whatever platform you're looking at. And they're like, should I take this? And I know that maybe they're eating very poorly, or they, are still using substances in their body that are harmful. They're still smoking, or they're using marijuana on a daily basis, or they're just eating a lot of ultra processed foods. They're living off of just a ton of ultra processed. And I'm like, and the way I describe it, I haven't, if you can help me come up with a better one, because I love when I listen for when connections happen. And that's when I use it. And you'll see my website. I have like tons of stuff, but the stuff that I know that people have connected, I'm like, that's what I want to use. But I'm like, we're in a house and we're putting curtains on the windows and there's this huge crack in the foundation. I'm like, let's start with the crack in the foundation and get it really strong. And then we can come back and talk about this supplement. Because I think as human beings, we like to distract ourselves. It's a natural thing. And then we're like, well, if I take this blah, blah, blah supplement, I'm going to then feel better.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, you know, we talk about the dose and things like that. So anyway, I think, again, we just have a responsibility to try to come together and really talk about these foundational pieces that's going to truly shift the health of people.
Yeah, well, it's like the how are you question, you know. We know that if we answer, we are going to show a crack, you know. We're going to show that the foundation is a bit broken, and we don't want to go there. We just say fine, and you get me the supplement. Let's get ahead with our day. And you know why people trust you, and I love that you ask the question continually. Do you trust me? It's such a beautiful question. But the reason they trust you, I think, or that you are trustworthy, is that you're not afraid of saying, I don't know. You're not afraid of saying, I have all the answers. You're not saying that primary care is the only way that we need to care. We need other things. And that's the expectation of a health professional is to have all the answers, is to know the perfect path. And once you are comfortable that's saying, I don't know, that's, again, it's like a smile being perceived with no language. It's a
Yeah.
human thing to say, yeah, that person doesn't know either, like myself. And that gives you the trust of smiling back, even before, even at the expense of that, of hearing the words, I don't know, will be uncomfortable because you do want the answer. But you resonate more with the people who say openly, I do not know.
Absolutely. And I tell, and when it's a question, like, why am I not blah, 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 blah. Let's say, I'm trying to think of a patient right now. She's horribly fatigued and in her early 40s. And we have a messaging, a HIPAA compliant messaging. And so she's messaging back and forth, and I like quick things, but then I'm like, no, you need to come in. We need to talk about this. You've got a big symptom. And she's asked me, what's going on? And, we went through some of the top things, and she didn't have, those things. And I said, at this point, I don't know, but I will walk with you. And I think that second part is, and I love the way that we're reflecting back on that, because I think this relationship-based medicine is, I'm vulnerable, I'm honest. So hopefully earning more trust, and hopefully, I have a high quality background that helps with the trust, but also saying, but I'm not going to leave you. You got me. I'm not, and the specialists are important. The specialists are there, like you said, for a kidney, for an ear, for this. Primary care, you got me. I don't know, but I'll walk with you. And so, like, when a patient has a cancer diagnosis, and I know they're seeing the oncologist and the radiation oncologist, and I'll say, we're not going to schedule an appointment because you're going to be seeing lots of doctors, but my door is open. And there's no reason you have to, you don't have to have a reason for the appointment. So I'm walking with you. And then I pick up on, and this is, a little bit of, I think, the motivational interviewing, in that, what's their why and what do they need? And some people, again, it's an individual care. They're like, thank you. And I might not hear from them, but I'll have messages that I'll be out and, hey, just thinking of you, da, 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 da. And then some people, they're like, okay, I need to meet with you every week until I feel like I'm comfortable. I'm like, okay, and I'm not adding any scientific value to their cancer diagnosis. Right. But I'm not saying, oh, I think it should be, this chemotherapeutic agent is dosing at the wrong level. That is out of my scope, but it's care.
Yeah.
It's
and
care.
Scientifically, you can prove that just walking beside a person will make the chemo even more effective, because
we know that we have the evidence. Yeah.
So we were walking in the souk in Qatar a few months ago, and you were telling me a few stories of patients that you didn't know exactly how to move forward with them because they had some emotional thing, or I don't know, I don't remember exactly, but that you went with your intuition in going a bit off script of lifestyle medicine prescriptions, of medicine prescriptions, and you said, I think this person has something hidden in this respect, and I opened it for patients to tell me about those things, and you told me, I'm a bit hesitant at times to say this out loud because I'm not trained in those things, but yet when I follow that intuition as a person, not as a doctor, I see beautiful things happening. So how would you characterize this, in a sense, courage of, trusting that?
When you started speaking, I was like, I don't remember the conversation. Then you went there. I'm like, oh, that was a big thing for me to admit to you. That was something, you're getting me very vulnerable here, which is a good thing. But I could feel, it's like, because when you're talking about them, I'm like, okay. So what we were talking about is something that I think I've learned to acknowledge in my own self, when I'm with a patient. that I have an intuition, a sense. And being trained as a fully Western, I was a professor at a large academic facility. I was teaching other physicians for 13 years. So, we were very, my training was a little bit, very allopathic, very Western, very, I wouldn't say rigid. I was with lovely, lovely people, but again, that training, and we use that word woo woo. That people say, oh, it's a little woo woo, and woo woo is a little edgy, etc. And like we just had discussion about, we want to sit in evidence base. It's so funny that you're bringing this up. So in my own mind, and this word healer means a lot to me, and I've acknowledged that, and actually cultivated somewhat a wisdom, and we can talk about where I think it comes from, but I think it's deeply universal, and this connectedness of with this other with people, and I believe it's God, and I believe we can call God a very, very different names, but I do believe in the larger whole encompassing, just this beautiful connection, this presence that I feel and I know in the world, and I know is well above the world and beyond, that I call God. And so I pray, I pray, and I don't mind speaking about my own prayer life or anything along those lines, but I'll pray before I see patients. And again, sometimes it's a quick, all right, here we go, because my God is really a friend of mine so I don't have to be very formal. But so I try to then tune in, and when I'm in tune and when I'm listening, and this doesn't happen all the time, and I was sharing with you, I'm just starting to get comfortable with this, I will feel a very specific answer, or I can't describe it. It's like a thought, and it'll be something somebody says, and it's a okay, we need to go there, we need to do that. And it's gotten, and again, I've only done this with a handful of my patients, and I asked them for permission. I said, I feel like there's something here. Can we take a moment? And then sometimes I feel like where it is in their body, and I'll say, I want you to put your hand here, your hand here, your hand here. And I said, I know this is going to sound different, but if it's okay with you, I want you to just, and it's kind of, it's different every time, but it's kind of like just a simple meditation. And I ask them to close their eyes if they're comfortable, and then just try to go in and get out. See, I think our heads are just in the way. Our brains, I really believe, if you look back, our brains are there to protect us. So this whole idea of I'm feeling in a story. So like if you right now kind of look to the side and was like ignoring and I'd be like, oh, Victor has something better to do. Victor doesn't want to listen to me. Victor wasn't And I will tell myself a story within 2 seconds that may or may not have anything to do with the truth. Our minds do that to fill in the gaps. And literally you could have just had, your daughter walk in and kind of laugh at you. And it was a beautiful time. And I've interpreted it as some other, Victor doesn't like me, or something.
Yeah, that happens on me on stage all the time. Like you get a side of a person and you're just, well, this person is hating me. And
Right.
he was just, thinking about what I'm saying on stage, whatever. Yeah.
Right. And I always tell, when I explain to patients, I'll say, my nurse is Rachel, and my Rachel is wonderful. And I'll say, Rachel and I walk past each other in the hallway, and she's got a funny look on her face. And I'm like, oh, she's still upset because I didn't do this. Geez, oh, Pete. And by the time I get to my room, I know that she's blah, 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 blah. And I always, to make my patient laugh, I'm like, she could have had gas. All she had was gas. And now I've got this whole story. So knowing that about our brains, it's funny because when we talk about mental health issues like depression, anxiety, and other forms, we use our brains to try to think through it. And I still think cognitive behavioral therapy and think therapy, I think it's still very, very important. And I'm a huge fan. But it's funny that we're trying to think about our thinking, and when in many patients, I've started to get this acknowledgement that we're holding things more in our bodies. And that's where some of the dysfunction or the alarm, I call it an alarm. And this is, again, I've read a lot of things. This isn't my own work. I've learned a lot of things, and I've just tuned into myself. So this is not like, any scientific breakthrough that Amy Mechley has.
And how does it feel in your body that you're saying this out loud and we're recording it, we're going to publish it, that Amy
You can tell
Mechley is acknowledging that she's talking about these things?
there's something more of an intuition. You can see my body language. I'm sitting forward and my hands are going like this. That's my husband says that's my tell. If I do this, that means there's something really going on. And I was like, what are you talking about? He pointed that out to me about 10 years ago. So you can see it's reaching a place of vulnerability. And I'm pausing, you know, I can feel this right here in my diaphragm is tightening a little bit, taking a deeper breath, because I think it is that, how was I taught? What was I rewarded for in life? How am I looked at? And when you have the courage to go beyond that and just be authentic and say, I'm using all of these gifts, wherever and however they came from, by the grace of God, or by the grace of, and putting them forth in a way that I think is beneficial to whom? Me, them, everyone, hopefully. But in that perspective, then it gives you the courage to say, okay. But Victor, I'll tell you what's given me even more feedback or more courage is I watch the response of my patients. Because I'm not doing this, I'm not making any money. I mean, I'm already doing what I'm doing. So I'm not doing it. There's no other motivation other than this strong feeling of healing. And then when I just try to explain to them, and not very eloquently, because I'm not, you know, but I just say, I want us to just drop down, and I want you to get, because you'll hear your mind talk, because we'll resist, you know, my mind will be like, what is she doing? How am I doing this? What is she telling me to do? You know, you try to, you know, we take some breaths and we get a little bit calmer. And then I have the patients go down in their bodies. And I don't know how, I don't know why, but I'll say, I want you to put your hand here. This is where and I feel it in my body for them. I said, I'm feeling something like, and there's many times it's, you know, it's your heart, your chest. If you think about the way we're wired and the vagus nerve and the plexuses. So there's plexuses where the nerves come together and they form these networks and then they go back out. We have multiple ones and they kind of represent where the chakras are, interestingly enough. But I just went to, I geeked out and went to this lecture from a, I want to remember his name because I think he's done the coolest thing. He's a human anatomist and he does dissections, and he did a dissection of the nervous system. It's called the Nerve Tour. If he's all over the United States. I think he's going international as well. But he recorded what he did with his dissection, and it was just a beautiful representation of the nerves. And so again, now I have a visualization, because I'm a visual learner, of this plexus that's around the heart, and the efferent and the afferent nerves that are coming in, and we used to think, you know, the nerve, like the circulation system is just an outgoing thing. It is out in, and it doesn't all go back up to the brain. It communicates here and sends things back out. It's just, again, it was a beautiful representation. And again, going back to the story, I don't know where I feel it or how, but I just listen and I try to really listen in, and and then I'm like, I want you to stay here. And then there's 2 questions I had them ask. And after they ask these questions, and I can tell if they're really asking it or if they pop back up into their head, and we just sit here and maybe it's 5 to 7 minutes. And then after these 2 questions, most of the time something shifts. And it's and the way that I've seen it and describe it, and I've gotten this language from reading multiple things about this, because when I was interested in it, there's like an alarm that we've held in our bodies, and it's a protective alarm, but we don't even acknowledge it. And that's where I think the roots of some of this anxiety or depression or these repetitive behaviors that are just sabotaging us. And I think it's from this, and again, this is getting, I'm being completely vulnerable. I think it's from this child. It's our child, and we have to nurture that child. And sometimes I ask them just to hold that child, which is them, but as a childlike form, because for some reason we're trying to protect ourselves from something that maybe is no longer there. And when we let go of that, I just see this, and I'm getting a little teary-eyed right now. The beauty of that patient just feeling like they don't have to put all that energy into that anymore. Or, and sometimes it's profound, sometimes it's very subtle, you know, in no way, but, and then, you know, afterwards they kind of smile at me, and every patient I've done it, they've said, thank you, where, you know, I'm waiting for what the heck? I thought you were, you know, a regular doctor, and I do all the regular doctor stuff too. I mean, and it's always kind of a there's a sharing of appreciation between us, because
Yeah.
there's gratitude that they're giving me, and there's gratitude that I'm giving them for allowing me to kind of go to that space with them.
Yeah. Well, I'm feeling it right now. I'm grateful that you're sharing this. And once you see the person in front of you, again, back to the how are you question, releasing your defenses, your mechanisms of defense that are automatic in your identity, in your grown-up identity, then we are in a space where, yes, we're children again. And that's another way of defining health, in a sense. Tomorrow morning I'll be leading a workshop, and just hearing you just allowed me to connect to this thing of, you are not going to lead a workshop through your mind, but through what you, with your whole self, with your body, with what you will perceive at that moment. And in that sense, it won't and it can't go wrong. So, start doubting yourself, stop preparing
Right,
everything.
right.
You'll be ready because you'll be there, instead of planning and how to sustain the space for each person that I don't even know. I'll meet them tomorrow for the first time. And again, if I connect to that childlike ability of not knowing, of just asking the person in front of you, can you please hug me? Even if I am the leader workshop, that's that's the gift. That's the gift that we will give each other.
That is absolutely, and again, you embody that so completely. And remember Wayne Dysinger, when we were at the conference, he talks about an open-hearted, and I think he's got a different term for it. But one of the things he does in his practice is he makes sure that he sits down, and the first thing he does, instead of opening his computer or opening his brain, he opens his heart. And I'm paraphrasing him, but absolutely. And that's what we need. When I do a lot of lecturing, when I started about 15, 17 years ago, nervous as all get out, and, rehearsing, and this word has to come out right. This word has to come out right. I don't remember how long, maybe 5 years down the road, through prayer, I thought, okay, God, if I'm supposed to mess up, if I'm supposed to just trip over my words, my slides don't work, blah, 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 blah. And that's supposed to what's supposed to happen, because there's someone there that needs that. So be it, because all I'm supposed to do is show up. It took my, that whole, I'm the one with the answers, I'm the one who, and just, Victor, as you have explained, your presence there, and presence, so being there and belonging with that group is the greatest part of that workshop.
Yeah. I believe that you and I are in similar stages of life, where we want to trust more. We're very intellectual, and we are very, rational, and mental, in a sense. And we are sensing this wisdom that goes beyond what we have named in science and with Western languages. And I do believe that leaning in and sharing it will be a beautiful thing for us. And this brings me back to a question that we've discussed a bit, which is about design. Designing the designer's mindset. You are designing a global integration of leaders and movements of lifestyle medicine. At the same time, you are running a practice. You shared with me before we started recording that you don't know exactly which things to let go of, and you want to be more of a bridge than a doer, in a sense. So let's try to bring these two realms, the big realm of designing things for institutions and for movements of people, and at the same time as your personal routine, your personal life, your personal decisions, and how to, taking a designer's mindset of projecting into the future, how would you integrate these goals of yours to create these communities, and to also be free enough in your energy, so that you're not just doing and just sucking all the energy and your vitality?
Yeah, let me know. No, that's what we were talking about, because that is, well, one thing I struggle with is keeping balance and keeping my resources, my bandwidth of where I need to go. because there's a lot of beautiful opportunities in so many things that I've been doing. And there's been a convergence in my own personal career. I always, so, and I think it's a beautiful tapestry. And if you stand back, you're like, oh, that's why I had to go do that for 4 years, or that's why this came into my life and I wasn't ready for it. And now it comes in. So again, I think there's a wisdom that comes with time. But it is looking at where I put those energies. And in many days, I feel like, you can ask my husband, that I'm doing too much. And we're trying to kind of figure out where the focus is going to be, because the field of lifestyle medicine has grown exponentially crazy because it's so needed. It's so obvious, and it's not being done. I mean, it's a beautiful, talk about design. And we did talk about this because one of the things that I did in my medical career is I went and got a certificate in design thinking, which is more of a human-centered design. And it blew my mind because I had to actually stop all my assumptions, which as a physician, as a diagnostician, I am trained deeply to assimilate, to look at information, assimilate information, look for patterns, look for things, come up with a diagnosis, come up with a plan, and then help execute that plan. I mean, it's a very specific and well rewarded and actually good. So it's not, we need to be good diagnosticians. But when you're ingrained and trained like that, and then you come up with a problem that you're trying to solve. So I'm like, okay, I go into this design thinking and I'm like, okay, well, I know what diabetics are. I know how they act. I know that, no, wrong. And it did. I was like, but it was one of the best things I think that I did to prepare me for this next phase of my career, which I had no idea where it was going. I never planned that, but to become a designer, a thinker, I've always had a little bit of a visionary, but I've had a practical sense. Like I can't stand going to committee meetings just to go to committee meetings. I'm like, oh, but I love talking and interacting with people that think differently than me, or can do the yes and add on and build and poke and pull and trust. And, I really enjoy that kind of work. So when I did that design thinking, it was so difficult, but it was critical because I stopped bringing the same thoughts and started designing for the person. And then again, that's that human-centered design. It wasn't like, here's something really cool, use it. It was, what is this person doing? What do they need? And really know them first. And you might not even come up with an answer, but you'll be a better informed designer, so to speak. And then you challenged me when we were in Qatar, and you said, Amy, I love that, but what about life-centered design? And I said, tell me more about that. And it was this greater sense of an ecosystem. Like when we design for the human, then we assume the rest of the world is there for the human. And again, correct me because you were my scholar on this. Life-centered design is we are designing for the whole ecosystem, and the humans are a part of, but like you said, the humans can go away and the ecosystem continues.
Yeah.
The ecosystem goes away, the human does not continue. So that has been another phase and stage of assimilation of a greater awareness of where we are to get to a better place. Again, in speaking of human health. And when we speak of human health in the context that we talked about, we have to speak of global health. We have to speak of, again, the holistic health, similar to primary care, my eyeball health versus my whole body health. So again, that was that wonderful discussion that I've kept contemplating on and looking at.
Yeah.
Design.
Thank you for remembering it. And yeah, I love that just life-centered design, it feels lighter in the body, that human-centered design. But let's go back to this idea of yours of becoming more of a bridge than a doer. Because I do believe there's powerful insights in thinking about that idea. So what's a bridge for you, and why are you inclined to call yourself a bridge?
Well, I think my natural instinct is a doer. I see a problem. I call it blessed unrest. There's just a blessed unrest, and most of us have it. We see a problem, we see something, we're not going to let it go. We're going to say, okay, something needs to be done. We need to do something about it. And it could be a leaky pipe. It could be, homelessness. It could be something that we in our humanness say this isn't right. And for me, it was healthcare. And for me, it was the healthcare system and, many aspects of that. So you start to lean in because you're like, oh, there's just, I'm busy enough, but oh no, there's got to be something here. In that blessed unrest, in that doer, then I would feel like, and again, I don't want to get too complicated. Like, I don't want to burden anyone else with this. I'll just do it. I'll just do it. And I was more of a doer. And I got satisfaction in doing, and that unbeknownst to me, I would get on another committee, then you get another title, then you get another, I wasn't going for the titles in the committees, but all of a sudden you're in a place of leadership, and you're like, okay, maybe I can do something more from this place of leadership. And I've watched my career and my life go through these cycles, and I do get in places of leadership in different facilities. And then sometimes I know that I'm doing the right thing. And then all of a sudden, sometimes I realize, like I was in a high place of leadership in a large healthcare system. And after a few years, I'm like, this isn't where it's going to happen. And for me and for primary care, and again, I don't want to talk too disparagingly, but we were a commodity. Primary care was a commodity. We easily exchanged, traded, replaced. The essence of what we just talked about was not acknowledged, honored, or valued, whether monetarily or just even from a respect perspective. We were truly commodity. And I thought, I can't be the leader of the commodity group. I'm like, and I would speak up as such. And so I was not, it wasn't the right place for me. We'll just put it that way. So I find myself in these cycles, and now where I'm at, and again, because leaning in, et cetera, and I feel like I can't continue to be the doer, because if I fill my days with doing, well, I can't do it all. And right now, like I said, I've got my own practice. I've got a network of other doctors that I'm supporting in the type of practice that we do, which I love. It holds a really important place because we're able to get vaccines, which is something we couldn't do. I mean, so the really practical, good reasons, always good stuff. And then all the things that are happening with the board of, lifestyle medicine, the International Board of Lifestyle Medicine. I mean, Victor, that's how I met you. We're in 32 countries now. Just saying that makes my heart soar, because we've seen the benefits of what lifestyle medicine does. And now to have 32 other countries having their own societies, teaching their own physicians, dietitians, pharmacists, healthcare workers, community workers in the science and the clinical application of lifestyle medicine, and in ways that the U.S. has never been able to do, even, again, and we know everything started here, but now it's out there and it's just growing, and this is what it's so cool. We're all supporting each other. We're all in this together, completely stronger together than ever. And you see these ideas are coming up, and so that just, all of the opportunities there. So personally, then I have to think about, okay, how might I be best used, in the best sense of the word, in this realm, in this time, in this place. And that's where the idea of the bridge comes up. And I've been doing that for a long time. And I find myself, even in my own practice, I'm a bridge for people. Like there's a hiking group, and I was like, oh, but with patient confidentiality, I'm like, da 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 da. And I've told one patient, can I talk about you? And she's like, absolutely. So again, I can't talk about the other patient, but I can talk about her. And so I say, she's given me, here's a name. And then they have the hiking group, so could you just hear and you listen, you're like, you would really benefit from being in touch with this person. You would benefit. So I've done that for a while in my community, and then applying it to this larger and greater. So I get a lot of requests for doing talks, webinars, for the betterment of spreading lifestyle medicine. And it's exciting and it's great. But now I'm like, I have colleagues that are fantastic. I've been able to get to know so many people who have so many gifts. So now I say, this is such an important thing. How about if I recommend a few people? Or as you remember, what we did when we were together in Qatar is I got to listen. We got to talk to the way that Stefan, the executive director, Stefan Herzog, set it up. We were in different places with different people. So we were in probably, very small conversations with all those people at different times. So I would hear something and I would say, oh my gosh, this person needs to speak to the president of the Society of Sri Lanka because they're having similar issues. Or what's happening in the Philippines has a profound effect on what might be happening in, Portugal, or blah, 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 blah. And so I'm starting to understand the wisdom of maybe putting more effort into being the bridge than the doer. And I don't know if you know, we were talking a little bit differently before, but I think there's just a lot of joy when you see the growth that can happen. Because you know, we were one entity. You know, we're just one entity, and to be the support or the
Yeah.
facilitator or the fertilizer, you know.
Yeah. Well, it's the same as thinking about human-centeredness and life-centeredness, where even you in your role is much more put at the service of the ecosystem, and you're not thinking yourself as a leader. You're not thinking yourself as the head. You're not thinking yourself as and that's difficult. That's difficult in the Western society because we are so inclined to trying to be the controller, the vertical in a vertical hierarchy, you know, not because we want power that we do, and that we need to embellish our ego, which we do too, but still, and I think that that's a key thing with physicians, you know, like the training is as doers on the one side and as leaders on the other side. And that's why I do, and this is a separate opinion, which I will just throw in now, and I've spoken about this several times, which is even lifestyle medicine shouldn't be just focused on the medicine, on the medical part, on the physician part, on the health practitioner part. You know, lifestyle medicine is the ecosystem, is the environment, is the society, is the narrative, is the culture, and so although I do believe that it's the best foundation for the medical sciences, lifestyle medicine, it is also the foundation for science, social sciences, environmental sciences, and other things. And as such, being a bridge, not only through practitioners or through leaders between societies all over the world, but interdisciplinary bridge, it's so powerful because you have that power to connect and power to smile really with the real smile.
Mhm.
Is that I think, and you're fairly intelligent because you are trustworthy and because you are a seeker of wisdom, not wise, then people like you can really be the bridge of bringing people together. And you don't have to talk the same languages and the same. You don't have to be you don't have to talk, you don't have to speak Spanish and Portuguese to bring these people together. You don't have to speak business and data science to bring these people together. You get these energies that bring people together, and I think in that sense, also the not doing is a way of bridging, of doing those connections, and just feel we need to feel more comfortable because I'm reflecting, you know, the mirror neurons with you, of feeling that not doing is also doing, you know, and just watching the world develop without us trying to be the ones who are sustaining everything.
Oh, I could not agree with you more. And the wisdom of listening. I think that is something I'm cultivating and learning because that's where the beauty comes in. Because I mean, what you touched on is, you know, being the traditional leader or the one in control and the one who, you know, points to everything and where they need to go. There's a time and a place for that, maybe, you know, in certain things. But I find the best servant leaders, and I've experienced many. I've experienced the opposite as well, but I've experienced many. It's the person who is really a good listener, and they know they don't have the answers, and they know they lean in on their teams, and they lean in on all of us, whoever they're listening to, and that's what makes them that good leader. And I didn't think about it this way, but again, I love how you said that, because it's this, my son calls it productivity guilt. And he's like, if I'm not being productive, da da da. And I'm thinking, you know, did we instill that in you? Maybe because both my husband and I are, you know, big workers and da 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 da. And I'm like, you're right. There is value, especially when we're talking about the things that we're doing. There's absolute value in contemplating and being still and being quiet and allowing others to have the space. And I think a good leader gets it. You're not losing credibility. You're not losing you're creating this team. You're creating this space for people to, I mean, think about it. How what an idiot if what a silly person if we're together and we don't listen. I'm trying to think of, anyway, there's a particular person that we were together with because I keep coming back to our trip, and I had made some assumptions about her country. And when we sat and listened, I was like, I had no idea that they were going through, some of the civil turmoil, and that the simple answers that sometimes we give for, oh, here's how you can help facilitate your society. Here's the things that you can do to help grow it or to spread the word and, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, oh, please keep talking. I was like, I can't. So again, it's that design mindset. You have to understand. It's Stephen Covey. I love the Stephen Covey principles. Seek to understand first, always, and then
I love
communicate
this.
well.
And
then
I think, one of the challenges for us, and because we are about to end up the conversation, is to bring this what you just said, and feel that confidence in the body, so that we know that this is, because if not, our same pattern of doing of speaking will repeat itself. We have to, and now you've talked about the most difficult thing you've ever done was to go into a silent retreat, and there's some power there. So yeah, let's just end up in silence here, and allow for the silence to be the eloquent here, to be the eloquence.
Wow. I can't help it. You are asking me to do one of the hardest things that I will do. And for you, I will.
Okay. And I will too. I will too.
Yes.
So thank you for your words, and thank you even more for your silence. You have a great day, Amy.